Hello, my name is Jackie Brown, and I am the Vice President of the Chester Historical Society and one of the historians. I was amazed by Monday's event that Sky put on and loved the speaker. And it made me stop and think about our history with slaves, racism, abolitionists. And I started to do the research. Some of it I had known. And I was going to do a program for Facebook, and then I wasn't really thrilled with a lot of the Facebook comments and decided not to do it. And then I was asked to do it. Several people asked me to continue on with it. I got some private messages asking me, were there really slaves in Chester? So here I am. And I'm going to give you the information that I found in my research. To me, it is no coincidence at all that the Holocaust Week and the Black History Month share a part in the same calendar. Both Jews and Blacks have lived through really dark times in our history in this world. Some of the stories from those times are too painful to remember. To forget is much too dangerous. Our children need to know about the Holocaust and slavery. There is a saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat.
African slaves were noted in New Hampshire by 1645. They concentrated in the area around Portsmouth. Furthermore, as one of the few colonies that did not impose a tariff on slaves, New Hampshire became a base for slaves to be imported into America, then smuggled into other colonies. Yes, Chester did have slaves, and no wonder, being so close to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This is a map from 1790 showing the counties that had slaves. Chester was established in 1722. The census of 1753 lists only a single male slave. This number, by 1767, 14 years later, had increased to 7 males and 2 females. The last record of slavery in town was a man and woman pair listed in the census in 1788. But by this time, slaves did not have to be listed in census. The names and the fate of all these slaves are now lost, as are the names of their owners from Chester, New Hampshire. This is a photo of Benjamin Chase. Benjamin Chase was a great historian to Chester, New Hampshire, and he wrote the book Old Chester. And he has the high honor of being one of the earliest anti-slavery leaders in the state of New Hampshire. He lived to see over 200 men from Chester and Auburn go forth to destroy the evil of slavery, against which he had fought from early manhood. This was a notice in the newspaper in 1817, which stated the people of color throughout the state were to meet in Exeter for the purpose of forming a society beneficial to said people. Another question that was given to me was if there was an underground railroad in Chester. Of course, the Underground Railroad was a secret organization, so it's very difficult to document. But a local legend has been told that there was an underground railroad in the building of Bittersweet Blessings. Unfortunately, when this house was turned into White Pines College, walls were taken down to make dormitories. Benjamin Chase, Chester's greatest abolitionist and the writer of Chester's first history book, was a member of the Presbyterian Church. In 1840, he left the church because it was part of the National Presbyterian Assembly, which was pro-slavery. The next to leave the Chester Church was the Reverend Sargent in 1841. The people voted to close the 108-year-old Presbyterian Church rather than stay with the National Assembly. In 1861, the Civil War began. Chester's men went off to war to fight for the freedom of the black slaves. The list of men was never complete, but at least 140 men served in the Civil War, with 34 men dying. Many of these men are buried in the village cemetery. The monument that stands in the center of town honors those brave men who fought for their freedom. This is a photo of James Locke. He lived in my house and he served in the Civil War. It was not until the second year of the war that black men were allowed to fight for their own freedom. This is a photo of a black Civil War sailor, one of 9,000 that served on the USS New Hampshire. One of my favorite pieces of artwork by the sculptor St. Gaudens from Cornish, New Hampshire, stands in the Boston Common. It is a bronze relief that depicts the 54th Black Regiment of Massachusetts as it marched down Beacon Street in 1863 to depart to the South. The years that followed the Civil War, Chester made great efforts to help the new African American citizens of the South who had been freed by the war. In 1884, the Chester Congregational Church sent 200 used books to the free men of the South. Celestia Goldsmith, a teacher, went to Tennessee for 13 years to teach the African Americans. I've told the good and now need to tell the bad and ugly, written in the Chester History book. The most popular movie in 1916 was the pro-Ku Klux Klan movie, The Birth of a Nation, which when it played in Derry, drew dozens of spectators from Chester. In July 4th, 1924, a cross was burned in front of Stevens Memorial Hall by local Klan members. The writer of the Chester Historical book has in his own collection a hooded white robe that someone wore on that occasion. He says the true identity of its prominent owner is today best forgotten. In 1988, former Klan Grand Wizard David Duke received 14 votes in Chester in his run for vice president in the presidential primary. Several years ago, I was given 2 Ku Klux Klan hoods by an older person that said they came out of a house in Chester. This was probably most likely used in the burning of the cross on the front lawn of Stevens Memorial Hall. One hood is in the Chester Historical Society Museum collection, and the other my husband called the State of New Hampshire Historical Society, and we took the older person up there to donate it to them. They had a robe for their collection, but they did not own a hood. I released this video today on purpose because today is Juneteenth. Juneteenth Day, also known as Freedom Day, Celebration Day, or the Black 4th of July, which commemorates June 19th, 1865, as the emancipation of the African American. This day is celebrated in many other countries also as the end of slavery, the culture of the African Americans, and their achievements.